We just got paid £3,000 from one of our bespoke investors for a rent-to-rent Airbnb deal, and here's why. So if you watch this video till the end, you're going to understand how to analyze a deal in less than 10 minutes, because trust me, a lot of people out there are going to give you dodgy numbers, and you want to make sure you know how to tell a good deal from a bad one so that you don't lose money. So if you're looking to get into Airbnb, this is going to be one of the most crucial videos you will ever watch.
If you want to have a banging deal, amazing bookings, long-term and short-term, and crazy months, the deal must be banging in the first place. You can't achieve those things if the deal isn't good. To know this, you have to understand what a good and banging deal looks like. And to do this, we're going to break it down in 3 stages. We divide the deal based on area, the overall property, and the figures.
All right, let's get into it. So the first thing that you want to do is get all of the information. So we asked these questions to get the things that we needed so that we could start analyzing the deal and see if it would be a good fit for our investor and if we were confident enough to actually try and sell it to him.
Once we got all of that information, we then headed to a software called Property Market Intel, or PMI. This software is a game changer. This will collect all the Airbnbs in the area and gather all the data to occupancy rate, or the average occupancy rate, as well as the nightly rate, all in one platform.
So this is Property Market Intel. Now I'm going to type in the postcode of the deal. It's a 3-bedroom property and it actually has 2.5 bathrooms, so it's got an ensuite and a communal, and then it has a small toilet downstairs. So with a 3-bedroom property, we could comfortably sleep up to 6 people, probably more, but I'm just going to keep it at 6 for now. Now this software is going to tell us what we think we can charge for it roughly and the average occupancy in the particular area. So we've got 67% average occupancy, 135 daily rate. Now, if I was you, I would not rely on this figure, because we found sometimes it's spot on, sometimes it's way too high, and sometimes it's way too low. So what you want to be doing is actually scrolling down and taking a look at the individual properties on Airbnb themselves to compare the spec of the property and also what they are charging on certain days. So I would say that this is a similar spec of property. Let's take a look at how much they are able to charge. Okay, they're all blocked out. So we can move on to the next one. And remember, you always want to be comparing like for like. So you want to be comparing a 3-bedroom house with a 3-bedroom house. Okay, obviously this one has only 1 bathroom, but that works in our favor, because if you have more bathrooms, you can it's preferable for guests to stay in a property with more bathrooms, but the main thing is you want to be like for like in terms of how many bedrooms you've got. So over here, okay, we've got 130 for Monday to Wednesday. Let's see how much they're charging on the weekend. Okay, they've kept it the same, which is interesting. If I just play around with a few of these dates. So we're looking at an average of 130 for this particular property, which is not far from the average daily rate that Property Market Intel suggested. Let's look at the next one. So this looks like a fairly new property, but they've got 20 days of October booked out already. That's what it seems like. Okay, these guys are charging 142. That's interesting. Let's see what they're charging just for a weekend stay. So if we go across the whole weekend, okay, so that jumps up to 171. So we had 129, and then we've got 140 to 170. Let's take a look at the next one. This one is a 3-bedroom apartment, but if they're charging a similar nightly rate, once again, that works in our favor, because if we've got a house and an apartment is charging 130, then we can definitely justify charging 130 for a house when an apartment is doing the same. So this is like a long-term duplicate listing. That's £3,133 for 1 month. That's what it looks like. Okay, we can move on from that. Let's take a look at this one. This is 4 bedrooms, so I'm going to ignore that. What we can also do actually is just type in the postcode on Airbnb. So if I take this postcode, it will give us more comparables. So you always want to first start by checking off in sort of a slower season. So like October is a bit slower. Let's do 5 guests. Let's see what we come back with. So, okay, 3 bedrooms, 129 a night. Did we already see this one? I don't believe we did. Okay, so this is 104 a night. And then if we look on the weekend, okay, they've kept it at 104 a night. That's interesting. Let's do, okay, 115 a night total. We've got 123, 125, but that's 2 bedrooms. So let's move on to here. Okay, 133 a night. Then if we do the weekend, 147. So I think we can comfortably say that we could probably charge around 135 for this. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable assumption.
Once we have more of an accurate figure on the nightly rate and occupancy, we can then head towards a magical calculator that's going to tell us if it's a banger or a stinker.
Right, so we are at the magical calculator, as Faz mentioned. I've inputted the numbers in already. So the rent is $12.50. The bills, we've estimated £160 for council tax, £180 for electric and gas, and then you've got water and Wi-Fi fees. And then for this particular property, we've managed to negotiate no deposit. The staging roughly should cost around £3,000 because there's a little bit of furniture in there already that can be used, and then the sourcing fee £3,000. So I know in the video I mentioned 135. I'm putting £130 just to be conservative, and essentially this calculator is just going to give you a breakdown of how much you can expect to make at different occupancy levels. And sort of if you play around with the nightly rate, so if we manage to get 135, then okay, at 70% we will get £759. So I think the occupancy it mentioned was like 67%, something like that. So at 67% you'd be making £656. It's pretty self-explanatory. Now if you want to make sure you have a good deal, you want to be breaking even at 50% or as close to 50%. I know in London sometimes that can be hard to do, so there are some deals where I'd still say it's acceptable if it's breaking even at 52, 53%. Anything higher, you're putting yourself into a bit of risk. And when you're buying a deal, it's hard to be making your money back in 6 months. A lot of people say, yeah, if you're not making your money back in 6 months, it's not a good deal. But when you're paying for a sourcing fee and then you're still paying a deposit and you're still paying furnishing, etc., it's unrealistic for you to be making your money back in 6 months. You'd have to have the rent at what, like £1,050, something like that, not even that, and it still doesn't break even at 6 months. So that's very unrealistic. I'd say between 6 to 10 months is okay if you're buying a deal. If you're getting a deal yourself, then that's different. But if you're buying a deal and it's breaking even around 8 months, 9 months, even up to 10 months, if it's a good deal, then I'd say that's fairly acceptable. So let's move on to the next part. So in conclusion, after doing our due diligence on Property Market Intel, after running the numbers through our calculator, it turns out it was a decent deal. The saucer did slightly inflate the nightly rate, so we brought it down from 145 to 130, but even at those numbers, it still stacked fairly well, and that's why we decided to push it to our investor. He went and viewed the property virtually, had a chat with the landlord, everybody was happy, and bang, that's another deal sold.
If you guys are looking to start your new Airbnb business or even add more to your portfolio, click the first link in our description and let's work together. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.